We will get started. Thanks for joining the call. My name is William Butler, and I'm the head of membership here at L Suite. First and foremost, wanted to thank Jason Steven, GoPro's general counsel, for joining us on this call and volunteering his time to talk about his experience with L Suite. So, a quick run of show. I'm going to introduce our co-founder Greg in a minute here, and he's going to walk through kind of why we started this community originally. Then we'll go through a few questions with Jason. And then if you want to save any questions that you have for the end of this call, Jason is happy to answer any of those questions about his experience with L Suite or with GoPro. I think it'd be helpful. Before I throw it over to Greg, it would be helpful if any of you would be willing just to throw in the chat your first name, last name, job title, and company, so we can understand where some of the folks are calling in from. Greg, I'll throw it over to you.
Cool. Yeah, thanks, William. Good to see you all. Thanks for joining us today. My name is Greg Rayton. I'm co-founder here at the L Suite. I am a former lawyer, recovering lawyer, I guess now. I haven't practiced in a while, but I graduated law school in 2008. Started at Latham. I was a corporate M&A and capital markets lawyer at Latham for about 3 years, and then moved over to Gunderson. Spent about 2 years at Gunderson working more with startup clients, so some venture-backed startups and venture funds. Ended up moving in-house when I was a fifth-year associate, and this was back in, I guess, yeah, 2013, 2012, 2013. Took a role as a general counsel of a seed stage accelerator incubator called 500 Startups out in the Bay Area. Spent about 2 years there as the GC, so I was the first legal hire there, and sort of went through the curve of both moving in-house and then developing a legal function at a company that hadn't had one before, which was a big learning curve for me. And then after about 2 years, I joined a company, another venture fund called First Mark Capital, New York-based venture fund, more of a traditional Series A fund. Spent the next 5 years there as the GC and COO. So this community is something I co-founded with a friend of mine named Kieran, who was a GC at a venture-backed fintech platform. So when I had moved back to New York in 2014, 2015, we really just started talking about how challenging this job is, and particularly how challenging it is in venture. This idea of like hyperscale venture investors on your board, all the different personalities of that, everything that goes around that kind of high growth ecosystem. So we really thought that although, a lot of obviously what we all do as lawyers is confidential, there is so much that's not confidential. And there's so much about just like the job of being a GC that we can all learn from and share best practices. So we started doing some meetups in New York. First one was in 2015. Really focused on getting the venture community together at the time. So it was focused on this venture-backed startups, venture fund kind of ecosystem. Seemed to really resonate with folks. Continued to expand that group in New York, and then to Boston, San Francisco, and et cetera. So that's kind of still core to who we are today. We are a community of general counsels and senior in-house legal leaders. As the community has grown over time, it's not just venture-backed startups or venture funds anymore. It's obviously much broader than that. We have public company communities. We have non-venture companies. We also expanded into communities for the whole legal team. So we have a deputy and counsel community. We have a legal ops community now. But really, like, the mission is helping you all do your job better. I think, similar to how, we originally discovered this. I mean, there's so much about what we do that is not confidential or proprietary. It's building legal teams. It's how do you operate faster? How do you become a business partner to your board and your CEO? Now everyone's obviously thinking about how do you incorporate AI into your workflow and get more efficient and all of that. So that's kind of what we really strive for. It's helping you be a better GC in that seat. Some of that is general leadership, but it's really focused on leadership as the general counsel and that operating lens. So that, love to turn it back over to William and Jason. I'm happy to answer any questions at the end as well, but want to give you time with Jason in particular.
Awesome. Thanks, Greg. Uh, Jason, you ready for a couple questions that I throw at you?
All right, let's go.
Cool. Well, I think it'd be helpful just for context for some of the folks on the call to maybe understand your background a little bit better, and then how you came became involved with TechGC and L Suite.
Yeah, so my background, after law school, did the whole law firm thing for a couple of years and then ended up going in-house. I realized I didn't like law firm life. That wasn't really for me. Really had a good working relationship with one of the firm's clients, and I ended up going in-house with them in a really cool job. At the time, I was in Boston, Massachusetts, and they wanted to set up a legal team in Europe. So I ended up moving to Europe for 3 years and doing that. Was at that company for 10 years, various roles in the legal department. Came back stateside and then got recruited to join GoPro as it went IPO. I came in at a much junior level than where I'm at now. Kind of worked my way up through the organization, and now I'm the general counsel, and I also lead public affairs for the company. And then in terms of my involvement with, I keep calling it Tech GC because when I started, I was involved with the prior branding of it, which was Tech GC, I think around 2019. And at that time, I was a deputy general counsel, and it was a really helpful community for me because you know you're sometimes you need like a sounding board on like particular issues or like problem solving. And what TechGC provided to me back then was that sounding board. Like I've actually, through some of the L Suite events, have developed some really tight professional networks of people that I can now just they're in my mobile phone. I can call them and be like, "Hey, I need a sounding board on an issue," and it's been like really great community for that.
Awesome. Yeah, and in our pre-call little prep, we talked about a couple specific scenarios where you have used TechGC as a sounding board. I think the two examples that we talked about were the H-1B semi-crisis and then a specific law firm vendor recommendation examples. So would you
Yeah.
mind digging into those a little bit for us?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's essentially what I was explaining earlier, like the H-1B issue. Everybody kind of was in this very mad dash, like how are you interpreting this? What are you doing? Just understanding other company and legal team strategy against what we were learning, just to make sure, given the time sensitive nature of that event, that we reacted accordingly. So it was really helpful in that respect. And then the other one was if any of you deal with like privacy litigators, we had gotten this demand letter or pre-notice action letter from a firm, Pacific Trial Attorneys, and the platform, L Suite platform, is really great because it has like the sound, like basically a chat room where organized by different topics and things like that, and you can search it. And I literally put SEPA, and then I put SEPA Pacific Trial Attorneys, and like boom, there was like loads of conversations on how other companies managed litigation or negotiated litigation on this particular issue with this firm, and sort of how they game planned it. So it was helpful for me because I was just trying to get my arms around it. And then when we spoke with external counsel, I was coming to that conversation with some education on the topic. And so whenever they were explaining to me a strategy, it was just like a much more efficient use of time. And we didn't have to spin up like a long meeting or multiple meetings. It was like, this is what we're going to do. And it ended up being, in that example, like a really great outcome for our company.
Awesome. Well, thanks for diving into that. And then a couple more questions for you, then we'll open it up to questions from the audience here. So your broader team is involved with our other deputy and counsel communities. So I'm just wondering if you have a sense of the value your legal team gets from the community. Like, is there any tangible evidence of better performance from your team or saving you time? Anything that you can provide for context there?
Yeah, so I mean, it's essentially the same thing as that example I just shared with respect to the Pacific trial attorneys. It's utilizing the platform as as part of like your initial process and, name the topic. You go to the platform, see sort of what's out there. It has really improved over the years, where it is like a very valuable resource for our legal team. I have a really small legal team for our business, so we have to be scrappy where we can to stick with our budgets. And L Suite is part of that package of resources that we use. And I know my deputy general counsel, he attends a lot of Bay Area events. And then I have some other attorneys as well that participate in a lot of the online stuff as well. So whenever we're talking about a topic, before they pull the trigger to talk to counsel, I'm just like, given the tools that we have, of which L Suite is one of them, what have you learned? What's initial thoughts? And so L Suite is just part of that process.
Mhm. And then last question for you, and then we'll open it up to any questions that the group has. So, how do you personally justify or make room in your legal budget for L Suite?
Yeah, so it's at this point, L Suite and prior to that, Tech GC has just always been part of our ongoing budget. So it's part of the continuing legal education, extra tool that we use for the legal department. And so it's I know for some companies it's probably pretty hard to justify, but for us, like it's very much incorporated into our overall budget, and the rationale is there where it provides a platform and opportunity for the attorneys on my group and myself to connect with others. And I think that's where the true value is, right? Is building out your community of peers, which isn't people you went to law school or practicing different types of law or something like that. These are people who are in the trenches doing the same things that you're doing. So they're valuable connections.
Awesome. Well, those are the questions that we had written down. So I would love to open it up to the broader group. If anyone is brave enough to unmute themselves and ask a question to either Jason or Greg, we'd love to just make it an open forum right now.
Hey, William, this is Randall Cook.
Hey,
Sorry, I'm
Randall,
not
good to
on.
see you.
Yeah, sorry, I'm not on the screen. I apologize. I just wanted to sort of supplement the comment from Jason just about the budget and so forth. One thing that I found useful for whatever it's worth is I always put my TechGC L Suite membership under my law firm budget because I really use it to either replace or reduce outside counsel costs. Sometimes I can get an answer I need from the group without going to outside counsel, or I can get better educated through uh, the brain trust and so forth, and so it reduces the hours. So that's my rationale for putting it there. And optically, I think it's much better because when people see subscriptions or memberships, I think there's a natural inclination for people to really question that. What's that for? What's that about? Do we really need that? Whereas if it's in the law firm budget, and especially when you compare the cost, it's a non-issue. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
Appreciate that. Thanks, Randall.
And I just answered one question in the chat, but I guess happy to get the voice over there. So yeah, we do have there are within the L Suite brand. Jason sort of alluded to this. Randall didn't fully introduce himself. Also a longtime member. Um, we started as a community called Tech GC. That was what I was referencing as being sort of for the venture community. Tech GC is still a community that exists. We have sort of a number of communities under the L Suite brand. There are what we consider to be GC levels. So high level, there is tech GC. We have a community called Enterprise GC for non-venture backed startups, and we have a fund GC community, which is venture funds, PE funds. Um, GC discussions are open to GCs only. So if you add your full team to the community, there is like a deputy and a council community. They don't see the discussions or any of the threads you post or any answers there, for obvious reasons. People are often talking about sensitive things, like we have an upcoming layoff coming up, and layoff, like a riff or whatnot, and we're looking for advice on how to handle that. You might not want someone on your legal team to see that if they don't know. But they have discussion forums for themselves. There's a bunch of shared resources like peer documents, so people share templates and precedent. There's event libraries. Lots of the events we do are recorded, so you see all of the video recordings, and they're CLE events, so they have written backup materials, like whether slide decks prepared by law firms or whatnot. All of those materials live on the platform. Everyone gets access to. We do have a CLE on demand platform. We acquired a community or a platform called Illuminate Plus last year, and it's a really nice CLE on demand. So you get, there's hundreds of hours of content across all 50 states. So
There's
those
also,
resources are checking.
sorry to interrupt, there's also like really valuable playbooks that I know my legal team has leveraged that are on the playbook for different things, right? So um, whether just like updating your own playbook or creating a new playbook, it's a great resource. Like all of the CLE materials, et cetera, uh, really great.
Cool. What other questions from the group can we be helpful with?
Hi, Bria Mertens. I'm the GC of BioCardis. If you wouldn't mind sharing, Jason, I would love to hear an example of a question that you posed to one of the communities or to, peers that you know through L-Suite that you would have otherwise taken to outside counsel, but you were able to resolve through this format. I mean, I think the ROI, case on the website really pitches a lot about like you save costs on outside counsel, but just thinking through parsing what would you take to a group like this? What wouldn't you? I'd love to see an
Yeah,
example of, something you have benefited from.
excellent question. So I feel like my response is not going to surprise anyone. I mean, think about like 3 years ago, when companies started to deal with employees accessing AI training models to answer questions. A lot of legal teams started freaking out. Like, what are you putting on there? It's like confidential information and stuff. So one of the questions that I posed up there was around how other companies were handling governance of like how to get your arms around the company, get your arms around sort of like the processes and procedures around the governance of accessing these multitude of AI tools and like who owns what in that policy and like how do other companies roll it out? And it was actually a really great discussion. And in fact, like that topic at that time um, ended up being part of an event that I was a co-host at for Tech GC in California, at a beautiful hotel in Dana Point. It was really majestic. It was awesome. Great event where this was like a huge topic. It was like, how do you do the governance around these AI? What's your AI policies include? And then there was this really good breakout session on sort of the same question, but at the board level perspective is like, what does board governance of AI look like, at these different companies? And there was like really robust discussion that helped inform like how I organized the GoPro board around that topic.
Yeah, if I can piggyback on that for a second in case helpful. That is a great question, and that's one that comes up a bunch. I've heard a couple other members, in addition to what Jason's saying, like the direct feedback you're able to get. A couple other members have told me that it's really valuable in just doing that pre-research, that you're still going to go to your outside counsel, but you're going to be a lot more efficient. You're going to know you're going to know how your peers are dealing with it. You're going to maybe refine your questions, and you're going to have some background that you're going to like come into it. Obviously, I think a lot of us are using ChatGPT and other tools for that too. I think the unique perspective this brings is the industry. Like you understand, like truly, like this is what peers are doing. This is what I'm being told. These are concerns they've had. This is what someone told me their outside counsel told them. Does that make sense to you? Whatever that might be.
Thanks, that's helpful.
Sarah, to your question, the provide tools, can you maybe just elaborate on that? Like, what do you mean? Something specific?
Yeah, you mentioned playbooks. So with those in that, I guess, tool or access, are there any international um, guidance provided or international playbooks?
Yeah. So the community is, it's predominantly US based. But that said, we do have quite a large chapter in London, and we do regular events in London and across Western Europe. So we have 3 annual conferences that occur in London for different subsegments. So I guess point being, yes, there's quite there's resources for European companies. We have some members in Asia, so there's forums up there. I know there's a number of like Singapore forums. There's a variety of different things that people share. It's those types are driven by members asking for forms themselves and then other people supplying them. Like we do aggregate a lot of US playbooks and forms on our own. We are not proactively aggregating international playbooks. But a lot of people do ask for them, and then certainly many members have companies that span multiple international jurisdictions, so they do have playbooks they share in the resource library. I know, Jason, if you have anything else on that, have you used it for that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't honestly like I have never really looked at the playbooks from an international perspective. So really can't add more to that. Sorry.
No, that's helpful. Thank you.
Great. Any other questions from anyone in the group that we can be helpful with?
So if there's nothing else, I'm happy to show you a quick demo of the platform if people want to. Obviously, you're welcome to drop if you don't want to, or if you have questions, feel free to put them in the chat. One thing I was just going to show to you guys is a tool that we haven't released yet. So we are, like everyone, leveraging AI and working on an AI tool for the platform. So some of you might have seen this already. This is obviously, this is the Brain Trust. When we call it the Brain Trust member platform, you log in. There are a variety of discussion forums and threads, people asking each other questions. We have this tool that we have created that's called Lloyd. It is a AI bot on top of the platform. So this is in alpha right now with a number of our members. We'll be releasing this later this quarter. But it's a great example of maybe some of the value you're able to get from this community. So this is a live demo. We'll sort of like see how this goes. I'm curious. But I think maybe one interesting thing we could start with would be getting, Jason mentioned SIPA. So let's, I was going to maybe just try this. Let's see. We have some prompts in here, like prompt library. So what I'm asking here is, this is a question to search the Brain Trust. Again, this is what we call the platform. So surface most relevant discussions, documents, transcripts related to SIPA, and provide what's most applicable to companies like mine. So it obviously has information on us, the suite. So what this should be doing is it's going to go, we've got a ton of data across the platform. So I showed you the member discussion forums. We obviously have a member library. So we know, what companies people work at and what issues they might have dealt with. We do lots of events, and these events are on various different topics. So it'll be able to like search the event transcripts and see if that was referenced in an event transcript. We have a peer document library. So it should surface if anyone's like uploaded templates or whatnot on the platform. So here it's shown me a couple of different threads, so I can also see the sources here on the right side. So we can sort of see like this is SIPA discussion question post. So a member asked about SIPA, a number of people weighed in on this. Let's see. So this is an event video. So I can see within here, if I wanted to, I can sort of like click within and then go into that event. But within, oops. right? Within this, it should tell me, right? So in this webinar, expert webinar focused on website-specific wiretapping and privacy claims, including SIPA. So that's why Lloyd surfaced this as relevant. Variety of threads here. So anyway, this is kind of an example of how how rich like the data set and content is across the platform. We can go into more detail, or I could ask it, let's say, recommend 3 members I can reach out to. So this, I think can be a really valuable way. Right now, we obviously have static search and whatnot, but this can be a really valuable way for, leverage like you do any other tool. This is something we have built entirely in-house, sort of leveraging any data that is publicly posted across the platform. So it's only surfacing things you would otherwise be able to see via search. So again, if you had your team on this community, they will not be able to see the data will surface for them might be different than what it surfaces for you because there might be discussion threads only for GC members. So it's recommending 3 members here and then explaining why, I might want to reach out to these people and then where they might have gaps that might not be, relevant that I might want to ask them about. So anyway, just wanted to demo that for you. I think kind of a cool thing that we're launching and going deeper into that is a way to really like access and tap into the rich data set that does exist here. It's been around for 10 years, so there is quite a bit of relevant content. Obviously, many things in our world are stale after a year or two or even less, but many things are not, in terms of team building and whatnot.
Awesome. Thanks, Greg. And I think we're at time here. So just wanted to thank you all for joining the call. I'll send you all a follow-up email if you want to chat about membership at all. And then Jason, thank you again for joining. It was very interesting to hear your perspective on membership.
Not a problem. Happy to help.
Awesome.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you all.
Have a good one.